In this mech head-to-head match, we're going to explore the Archer versus the Longbow. Now, at first glance, this doesn't seem really fair. Tonnage is vital in Battletech. This idea of lights, mediums, heavies, and assaults. Even within each category, a light mech versus a heavier light mech, there's a big difference. And as soon as we make the jump into heavies and assaults, that extra tonnage really packs a lot. So at first glance, does it seem fair? Or is it even a contest to compare a heavy mech versus an assault mech? Now, I picked the Archer versus Longbow because these are two mechs that, from the tech manuals, look very similar. And based on the weight tonnage, they do kind of push forward a support-based role. But the Archer being a little bit different based on the configurations of the missiles and the secondary systems, which are medium lasers, versus the the Longbow, which has a similar configuration, long-range missiles and medium lasers, but a switch between the banks of medium lasers and long-range missiles. But does it make up for it in the tonnage? So let's run down the stats, then we'll crunch the numbers, and then I'll turn it over to you guys in the comments, my fellow mech warriors, mech commanders, and technical manual mechanics. The Archer, 2 LRM 20 packs. That's pretty sweet. You've got a maximum punch, 20 missiles. You've got the redundancy of 2, enough shots to fire sustained over the course of a battle, backed by 4 medium lasers, 1 in each arm, and then 2 within the mech. On the opposite side, we've got the Longbow. Similar configuration, 2 LRM 20 packs. So we've got that punch augmented with 5 packs, 2 LRM 5 packs, 2 medium lasers for close-up work. So within the tonnage, with what we have to work with, we've switched essentially lasers for 5 packs. Now, combat-wise, what's interesting is both do tend to suffer from the possibility of having all of those LRM missiles packed into the mech itself. They are vulnerable to ammo explosions, and you do have to watch the heat. All energy-based mechs, you want to manage your heat, but if you push it before you arrive at a potential shutdown, or even if you push past the shutdown, Fritz, I'm going to roll lucky. Let's go for it. The modifiers that you will suffer will be movement modifiers, firing modifiers, but still workable. I won't say fatalities or the potential for a fatality. But as soon as we involve ammo, when you start pushing it, not only are there the movement modifiers and other modifiers, but there's a chance you might cook off the ammo. That's something that, well, I've had to push that once or twice, but it wasn't really a decision. It's because my mech was in serious trouble. There was nowhere to go, and I was probably going to go down in the next 1, 2, or 3, or 4 turns. So we're just going out in a literal blaze of glory, and I'll take those chances of the ammo potentially cooking off. Never tell me the odds. So both of these machines have to realize that, suffer from that. That is a design consideration as a mech warrior or as a mech commander that we need to be aware of. But what this means is at long range, both are able to lay down a similar barrage against each other. The Longbow has a slight advantage in the 2-5 packs, but early on in the engagement, I don't really see it as much as an advantage because they're only 5 packs. You're pushing heat. You have to deal with that heat, clearing that heat, managing that heat. And the Archer being a heavy mech, not that we want to get hit, it's got some armor. It's not like we're blasting off against a medium or a light mech. So those 2 extra 5 packs at the beginning of the engagement, mid-engagement, I have to wonder just how effective they are going to be at slowing down the Archer. Now as we move to that mid-range or that short range, this is an interesting choice. That do you close with these mechs? I think a lot depends on the variables of what is the terrain. Does one mech have a more superior position than the other? Are there parts of lances where we're doing some indirect spotting? I'm assuming for the sake of this head-to-head vlog, these mechs might be part of a lance, part of a bigger battle group, but they're going in head-to-head for whatever reason. Invent the narrative. We're throwing machine against machine. So at that point, I think it's going to come down to what is the terrain? Does one have a slightly favorable advantage? As the archer pilot, I'd want to close. I want to open up with those 20s, hopefully score some hits, and I want to close to now the medium lasers. Because at this point, even with only 10 heat sinks, I can reliably fire off 2, push the heat a little, maybe clear 1, fire 1, clear 1, or if I get a good position where I'm not moving, blast away with those 4 medium lasers. That's going to outstrip the 2 on the Longbow. Now, at that point, Longbow could try to throw down some LRM 5-packs, also pushing the heat, just to try and get some more dice, try and get some more damage down there. But essentially, at that point, I see the archer having a slight advantage to a medium advantage if it closes at that medium to short range. Now, the other variable, if we're going to push the heat, even with negative modifiers being close with the long-range 20-packs, if I'm not moving and the other mech isn't moving, do I kind of go for that? Can we call it an alpha strike? Do I go for that push with the 20-pack? I don't know if I would right off the bat, firing both on either the archer or longbow under those considerations, but it is a possibility, and that's a nice spread with some redundancy. The final finisher, though, and the big question is, are we going to resort to hand-to-hand? Are we going to resort to physical attacks? The archer has the advantage here. Closing down to point blank, you're going to throw up a lot of modifiers, a lot of potential heat, plus movement for both of those 20-packs on both mechs. So it's going to come down to punching, which the longbow has a distinct disadvantage, and it's going to come down to at least 2 of the medium lasers on the archer, because the arms are going to be punching, so we have the ones on the mech itself. But that tonnage behind the archer, even though it's not an assault mech, it's still got bite, it's still a heavy mech, 1 in 6 chance of a headshot, combined with the zappy of the lasers. I just, being a longbow enthusiast, being an archer enthusiast, and having experience with both of these machines, I can't see the longbow standing up to that pressure. Against other mechs, when I've fought against them, the longbow, cannot withstand up to that type of pressure. I've wanted to redeploy. I want to get some demolishers in there. I want to get a better position where an archer, I want to kind of be at that range firing with the missiles and the lasers, but I'll brawl a little bit. We could do that. That machine's got some bite. So I give it, despite the weight advantage, I'm going to give this to the archer, but there is going to be a qualifier. I think since both machines are similar in many ways, despite the differences and the nuances, it's going to come down to terrain dominance, cover dominance. Just something as simple as when we have the opening firing and the mid-firing of those LRM 20-packs, if a mech can block off pieces of it and hide pieces of it, if it's like a level 1 blocking that lower half, or sometimes we'll play with rules where it is WYSIWYG. So based on the firing, if I've got half that mech behind a target, those hits, that left torso, that right torso, they're going to be negated, impact into a building or impact into some terrain. That is a massive, massive advantage. And I think the mech that can capitalize that on the most is either going to buy time or buy victory.